Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Monday, the 9th of January. My name is Rachael Parker. My pronouns are she and her, and I am an Anglican priest in the Anglican Diocese of Edmonton, the Anglican Church of Canada, in the lovely province of Alberta. And I am the priest or the rector for Dayspring Ministries, which is a collaboration of St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Thomas in Wainwright. Glad you're with me today. Last Thursday, I believe, I talked a bit about rejecting rejection and how we have to own our own self-esteem. And today I'd like to share with you something that I read at the end of the year from Our Daily Bread. And it's called Speaking to Encourage. Abraham Lincoln tops the polls as the most popular U.S. president of all time. His troubled presidency came at the culmination of a lifelong struggle with depression, a nervous breakdown, and neighbors who were known to set suicide watches over him in his youth. So how did he do it? The night he was assassinated, Lincoln's pockets were stuffed with newspaper clippings that praised him, his leadership, and the positive impact he was having. We all need encouragement. The author of Hebrews says in chapter 10, verses 24 to 25, "Consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." Ephesians 4, verse 29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Imagine what could happen if we were to do that in our home, churches, and communities. Don't go it alone. Hebrews 10, verse 25 warns us not to give up meeting together. Jesus didn't go it alone. He gathered a group of people to share life and ministry with, and he asked his closest friends to watch and pray with him when he needed it most. If Jesus sought out that kind of support, we should as well. Let's be intentional about encouraging one another as we walk this journey together, so no one has to go it alone. And that was taken from, excerpted from Words Matter by Jenny Ray Armstrong. I find that really powerful. I like Abraham Lincoln, so that helped too. But last week I've been having some back and forth in comments with one of my subscribers named Bobby, and Bobby is living with housing insecurity. Bobby is in their car. As of last week, sick with a cold, and really struggling with the reality that it would appear that we don't care. And when I say we, I mean pretty much all of us who have homes and computers that we can do this on, and cars of our own and jobs and things like that. And for all intents and purposes, how would someone in Bobby's situation understand that we do care? How are we encouraging? We can write checks, we can drop food off at the food bank, we can buy our toque from Home Depot to help homelessness in teenagers. We can do all those things, but are those truly encouragements? And yes, you know what? I would argue, yes, they are. Not everyone can make grand gestures. Not everyone has a home in which they're in a position where they can open it up and invite people to come in and live with them in community and provide them with a safe place to live, food in their bellies, a roof over their mouth, a shower to sleep, to clean in, clothing to wear. Not many people are in a position to be able to do that. Most people are in positions to be able to make a donation to a food bank, to help somebody out when they see them on the street, to do something, even just a kind word of encouragement. But the point is that we must do this in community. I can say all I want on a video like this, but if I do nothing outside of the office within which I record this video, then what good am I doing? I work with my churches to help stock the food bank. We collect donations, we collect financial donations, we talk about the work that's being done, we try to pay attention to what's happening. As a provincial church, like not provinces like states, or that, well, we have groupings of churches that are called provinces in Canada, and at the national level, we do have people who are lobbying with governments, who are making the case for our social services, who are arguing on the political level for the importance of paying attention to people, of working from right from the ground, where we see people who have no place to be warm, who have no home to go to, no shelter to be in, right? Like, and up from there, for those children who have no food in schools. One of my churches in Vermilion every year has a massive yard sale, and all of the proceeds, every cent, is given to the 2 elementary schools in Vermilion to assist them with their hot lunch program, their hot meal program, so that kids who come to school, and some of them who come to school because it's a safe place to be, it's a warm place to be, can have at least one square meal 5 days a week. Is it enough? Absolutely not. But it is something. It is something. And if we get angry and say it's not enough, then we are not encouraging. We are discouraging. We're making people who are doing the best they can at the moment that they're doing it feel like they aren't giving enough. They're not doing enough. And if we do that enough, if we push people down enough, make them feel like their efforts are useless, guess what will happen to their efforts? They'll stop. But if we, those of us who have some leadership or some voice, encourage people to look around them and say, okay, what can you do easily? Can you go into your pantry or into your kitchen cupboards and pull down some canned goods? And please don't ever forget, if you donate canned goods to a food bank, there's an assumption that people have can openers. Not everybody does. Pots and pans. How are they going to heat up a can of soup if they don't have a pot? How are they going to open it if they don't have a can opener? So when you give to food banks, consider those things as well, like can openers or abilities. How might people be given the ability to use the goods they get when they go to a food bank? Just a thought. If that's easy for you to do, if you can go into your pantry, go into your kitchen cupboard, or next time you go grocery shopping, throw a few extra things in the cart and donate them to the food bank, excellent. Good. Do it. Do it always. Not just once in a while, but every time you go shopping, do that. That's easy. Now, the hard part is, how do you stretch yourself? What else can you do to help? Do you have an out of the cold program in your community? And if so, can you volunteer? Can you make sandwiches? Can you watch the door and invite people in and welcome them? Can you clean the bathrooms in the morning when they're gone? If you don't have an out of the cold program, what would happen? How might you help make that happen? And don't just assume that out of the cold programs are only needed in big places like Edmonton or Toronto or Seattle or Los Angeles. Wherever we have people who are gathered, we're going to have homeless people, or we're going to have people who are at least at risk of homelessness. Have you ever heard of couch surfing? It happens a lot with, now more and more so with adults, but a lot with teenagers. When things are tough at home, parents sometimes the kids just leave because they perceive they can't handle the stress, the pressures put on them. Sometimes parents do indeed kick their kids out. It does happen more often than we like to acknowledge. And what happens then? They couch surf for a while. They go visit a friend until that friend's family is like, you really need to go home. Hint, in other words, get out. So guess what? They leave. Do they go home? Probably not. They go to another friend until those friends are all done too. And until eventually we find out they're sleeping in a cardboard box under a bridge, or they're hanging out in a park overnight. And think about that. A young woman or a young man who's left to fend for themselves, who have no food and no money, eventually, was it Maslow's hierarchy of needs is going to kick in. They're going to need food and shelter. What might they have to do? What might they have to risk to be able to do that? We can do more than we are doing, and we need to start. I know it may feel like an overwhelming thing, but that's where this idea of community comes back in. If we were to gather together in communities and encourage one another to do more, that's where the synergy of conversation can happen. I, as one person, may not be able to imagine what the solution for homelessness might be in Edgerton, Vermilion, or Wainwright. But what happens when we get together as a ministerial and all the ministers in town talk about it? Or what happens if a group of parishioners And friends start having conversation about over coffee about, well, what might we be able to do? There's something amazing that happens when 2 or 3 are gathered together. Christ is present. For Christians, we believe that. Where Jesus is present, nothing can stop us. Jesus would not want us to stand by and idly watch as people lose their lives, physically, literally, or spiritually, or mentally, because the resources they need aren't there. Jesus would be telling us, I'll help you. The Holy Spirit can guide us. So maybe that's what we need to do. We need to encourage each other to be in community. And in that community, we need to have the hard conversations. And then we need to do the hard work. So I encourage you in this Epiphany season to do that hard work, to discover little pockets of community. Maybe it's the ladies you lunch with. Maybe it's the guys you curl with, or you play hockey with. In the change room after the game, don't just talk about we're going to go for a beer. Talk about what you can do to help the people in your community. Because if every community did that, no communities would have people who are struggling or living in their car when they're sick. So Bobby, I pray for you, and I pray that you will feel better soon, and that you will continue to be an advocate for people who are in situations like yours. You will continue to remind us all to pay attention, to wake up, and do the work we say we're all about if we follow Christ. God bless you. God keep you. Be safe. And I will see all of you tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael on Tuesday. God bless.